Captain Sarah Chen stared at the view screen as reality twisted back into focus. The jump had worked. After 300 years of being trapped in their own solar system, humanity had finally cracked faster than light travel. The stars outside looked different now. Unfamiliar constellations that no human eye had ever seen before. "Jump successful," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the navigation station. "All systems green. We're approximately 42 light-years from Earth." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The UNSS Pathfinder had just made history. Behind her, the crew of 63 men and women erupted into cheers and applause. They had done it. They had crossed the impossible barrier that had kept humanity confined for so long. "Run a full sensor sweep," Sarah ordered. "Let's see what's out here." The celebration died quickly when the sensors lit up with contacts. Dozens of them. Ships. Massive ships that dwarfed the Pathfinder like wolves surrounding a rabbit. "Captain?" Webb's voice had gone tight with fear. "We have multiple vessels closing on our position. Their energy signatures are off the charts. These aren't human ships." Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "Broadcast first contact protocols. All channels, all frequencies. Let them know we come in peace." Before Webb could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered and changed. An alien face appeared, insectoid and terrifying, with multiple eyes that seemed to examine them with cold intelligence. When it spoke, the words came through as perfect English, though Sarah could hear the clicking sounds underneath the translation. "Human vessel, you have violated Dominion space. You will power down your engines and submit to boarding immediately. Resistance will result in your destruction." Sarah exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander James Park. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Starship Pathfinder," she said carefully. "We mean no harm. We didn't know this space was claimed. This is humanity's first journey beyond our home system." The alien's mandibles clicked together in what might have been surprise or disgust. "Impossible. Your trajectory indicates you crossed through the void barrier of Sector 973. No species can survive such passage. You will submit to boarding for verification and biological examination." Sarah had no idea what a void barrier was, but she knew when she was outgunned. "We'll comply, but I want assurances that my crew won't be harmed." The alien didn't answer. The screen went dark. Within the hour, the Pathfinder was locked in the docking bay of a ship so enormous that their entire vessel fit in a space that seemed designed for cargo storage. Alien soldiers came aboard, and to Sarah's surprise, they weren't all the same species. Some were insectoid like the one on the screen, their exoskeletons gleaming under the lights. Others looked like walking crystals, their bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns. There were beings made of something that resembled living metal, and creatures that seemed to shift and flow like liquid in containment suits. They were escorted through corridors that hummed with power, past chambers filled with technology that made human engineering look like stone tools. Other aliens stopped to stare at them, and Sarah heard the chittering, chiming, and buzzing of dozens of languages all around them. Finally, they were brought to a massive chamber that could only be a tribunal. Hundreds of aliens filled rising seats that surrounded a central platform. At the highest point sat three beings that radiated authority. The insectoid in the center spoke first. "I am Counselor Vraxis of the Dominion High Council. You stand before us to answer for your violation of established borders and your impossible survival of void transit." The alien leaned forward. "Tell us, humans, how did you cross the barrier that has confined every species in this galaxy for 200,000 years? Sarah stepped forward, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "We don't know what you're talking about. We developed faster than light travel. We jumped, we arrived here. We didn't encounter any barrier." A wave of sound erupted from the assembled aliens. Clicking, humming, and sounds Sarah couldn't even classify. The crystalline being to Vraxis's right spoke, its voice like wind chimes. "The human either lies or does not understand. The void is not a physical barrier. It is the madness between stars. It is the great filter that keeps order in the galaxy." "We will test them," announced the third counselor, a being of flowing silver. "If they truly crossed void-touched space unharmed, we must know why. This changes everything." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. What exactly is the void? Vraxis's multiple eyes fixed on her. "It is death, Captain Chen. It is the space between safe passages where reality breaks down and minds shatter. For 200 million years, Every species that has achieved space travel has learned the same truth. There are safe lanes through the galaxy and there is the void. No one enters the void and remains sane. But we did, Sarah said quietly. We didn't even know it was there. Precisely, Vraxis replied. And that, Captain, is why you humans may be the most dangerous thing to enter this galaxy in recorded history. You are either the key to expanding the Dominion beyond its ancient limits, or you are a threat to the careful balance we have maintained. We will determine which. The tribunal erupted into debate, dozens of species arguing in languages both alien and strange. Sarah stood in the center of it all, realizing with growing horror that humanity hadn't just made first contact. They had stumbled into something vast and ancient, and their very existence seemed to threaten it. She looked at her crew, saw the fear and confusion on their faces, and knew that everything had changed. The stars weren't empty after all, and humanity was very, very far from home. The debate in the Dominion Council chamber had lasted for 3 days. Sarah and her crew had been given quarters on the massive station called Apex 7, but they were prisoners in all but name. Guards stood at every door, and their every movement was monitored. Sarah spent the time learning everything she could about the civilization they had stumbled into. The Dominion was old, impossibly old. The youngest member species had achieved space travel 40,000 years before humans had even invented writing. They had built an empire that stretched across half the galaxy, connected by carefully mapped safe routes that avoided the void. But they had never expanded beyond those routes. They had accepted their cage. On the 4th day, a lone alien came to visit Sarah in her quarters. It was one of the crystalline beings, its body a complex lattice of geometric shapes that caught and bent the light. When it spoke, its voice was soft and careful. Captain Chen, my name is Prism of Dawn. I am an archivist and historian. I have come because I believe you deserve to understand what you have done. Sarah gestured for the alien to sit, though she wasn't sure if it could. Prism of Dawn remained standing. I'll tell you whatever I can, Sarah said. But I still don't understand what the void is or why everyone seems so afraid that we crossed it. Prism of Dawn's internal structure seemed to shift and glow. The void is difficult to explain to a species that has not experienced it. It is a region of space where the normal laws break down, sensors fail, navigation becomes impossible. But worst of all, it affects the mind directly. Any species that enters void-dense space begins to experience hallucinations, paranoia, and eventually complete psychological collapse. We lose the ability to distinguish reality from nightmare. How does it work? Sarah asked. Is it radiation? Some kind of particle we don't detect? We do not know, Prism of Dawn admitted. For 200,000 years, the greatest minds of the Dominion have studied the void. We know it exists. We know it kills. We know that certain regions of space are saturated with it while others are clear. We have mapped the safe lanes between stars, the corridors where ships can travel without risking exposure. These lanes form the borders of the Dominion. Beyond them is only madness and death. Sarah felt a cold understanding creeping over her, and we crossed through one of those areas. The space between Earth and here. Not just crossed, Prism of Dawn said. Your trajectory suggests you traveled through one of the densest void regions we have ever mapped. Exposure to such concentration should have killed your entire crew within hours, if not minutes. Yet you detected nothing, felt nothing, arrived here completely sane. So we're immune? That is what the Council wishes to determine. Tomorrow you and several of your crew will undergo testing. We need to understand this immunity. It could change everything, Sarah leaned forward. Why? If the void is so dangerous, why not just stay in the safe zones? You have half a galaxy already. Prism of Dawn's light pulsed in a pattern that might have been sadness. Because we are trapped, Captain. The safe lanes do not connect all stars. There are entire regions of the galaxy we can never reach, civilizations we can never contact, resources we can never access. The Dominion has not grown in 50,000 years. We are stagnant, locked into our ancient roots like insects in amber. There's something else, Sarah said, reading the hesitation in the alien's body language. Something you're not telling me. The crystalline being was silent for a long moment. Finally it spoke. There are records. Ancient records from before the Dominion was formed. They speak of a precursor race called the Architects. They were the first to map the galaxy, the first to identify the void. The records say they found something in the void, something vast, and then they vanished. Every trace of their civilization disappeared 2 million years ago. The Council does not like to speak of this. It frightens them. Sarah felt a chill. You think the void killed them? I think they went into it willingly, Prism of Dawn said. And I think your species may be the first since then who could follow them. The next day, Sarah and 5 volunteers from her crew were brought to a laboratory deep within Apex 7. Scientists from a dozen species worked at stations filled with equipment Sarah couldn't begin to understand. They were subjected to tests that lasted hours. Brain scans, blood samples, genetic analysis, and finally, direct exposure to captured void samples. The Dominion scientists had found ways to trap and contain small amounts of the phenomenon. They kept it in special chambers lined with exotic materials, like trying to bottle darkness itself. When Sarah was exposed, she felt something. A pressure at the back of her mind, a sense of vastness and depth, but it didn't hurt. It didn't drive her mad, it was just there, like hearing distant music through thick walls. The Dominion scientists were astonished. One of the insectoid researchers of Vrax named Chakres buzzed with excitement. Incredible. Your neural patterns show stress but no degradation, no cascade failure. It's as if your minds can process the void input without collapsing. Commander Park, who had volunteered for testing, rubbed his temples. It gives me a headache, like someone playing music too loud. But I've had worse hangovers. That comment sent another wave of shock through the alien scientists. Vraxis himself came to observe the final tests. When they concluded, the counselor stood before Sarah with an expression she couldn't read. You are unshaken, he said simply. The void that has defined the limits of civilization for longer than your species has existed barely troubles you. You are either our salvation or our doom. We're neither, Sarah said firmly. We're just different. That doesn't make us special or dangerous. It makes us human. Perhaps, Vraxis replied, but the Council has made a decision. We will mount an expedition into deep void territory, a joint mission with human guides. We will discover the source of your immunity and determine if it can be replicated. If it can, the Dominion will expand for the first time in epochs. If it cannot, he left the threat unspoken. Sarah met his multiple eyes without flinching. And if we refuse, then you will be confined here for the rest of your natural lives. We cannot allow knowledge of void-immune humans to spread uncontrolled. It would destabilize everything. Vraxis leaned closer. Choose, Captain. Help us unlock the secrets of the void, or become permanent guests of the Dominion. Sarah looked at her crew, saw the fear and determination on their faces. They had crossed into something bigger than they had imagined. Now they had to see it through. She turned back to Vraxis and nodded. We'll help you, but on one condition. When this is done, humanity gets to join the Dominion as equals, not as prisoners or curiosities. Vraxis's mandibles clicked. If you succeed, Captain Chen, humanity will be far more than equals. You will be the key holders of the galaxy. Sarah wasn't sure if that was a promise or a warning. The expedition ship was called the Seeker of Truth, and it was designed to be the most heavily shielded vessel the Dominion had ever built. Every surface was covered in layers of exotic materials meant to block void exposure. The crew compartments were nested within multiple protective shells. The ship itself looked like a metal cocoon wrapped around a core of living spaces. Sarah walked the corridors with Commander Park, both of them still adjusting to being back in space. The expedition team was small. Besides Sarah and 5 other humans, there was Chakres the Vrax warrior, Prism of Dawn the crystalline historian, and leading them all was Commander Vectis, a being of living silver who served as the Dominion's official overseer. Vectis made no secret of his distrust of humans. You are an unknown factor, he had told Sarah during their first meeting. Unknown factors lead to chaos. I am here to ensure that chaos is controlled. The destination was a region called the Abyss Sector, a massive stretch of space so saturated with void energy that no Dominion ship had entered it in living memory. Ancient records suggested the architects had maintained facilities there, but those records were millions of years old. No one knew what they would find. The journey to the edge of safe space took 2 weeks. Sarah spent the time learning from Prism of Dawn, who seemed endlessly fascinated by humanity. The crystalline being wanted to know everything about human culture, history, and psychology. Your species is young, Prism of Dawn observed one day in the observation lounge. You have only just reached the stars, yet you seem unburdened by the weight of cosmic time. The Dominion species carry millions of years of history. Sometimes I think that weight crushes us. We know too much about failure and limits. We have plenty of failures, Sarah replied. We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times before we made it off Earth. Wars, plagues, environmental collapse. We came close to extinction more than once. But you survived. Prism of Dawn's light pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps that is the key. You have faced annihilation and continued. The Dominion has been safe for so long we have forgotten what it means to truly risk everything. On the 15th day, they crossed the boundary into void-touched space. The transition was immediate and terrible for the non-human crew. Shakras collapsed in the corridor, her mandibles clicking in distress. The liquid metal beings sealed themselves in their quarters. Even Prism of Dawn's usually stable light patterns became erratic and chaotic. Only the humans and Commander Vectis remained functional, though Vectis moved slowly and with obvious effort. Sarah found the silver being on the bridge, interfacing directly with the ship's controls. Your crew? Sarah asked. Sedated, Vectis replied, his voice strained. The shielding helps, but is not enough. If we go deeper, I will need to sedate myself as well. You humans will have to navigate. He turned to face her, and Sarah saw something like fear in his alien features. I have studied the void my entire life. I have never experienced it directly until now. It is worse than I imagined. How do you bear it? Sarah paused, trying to put her experience into words. It's there. I can feel it like pressure in my head. But it doesn't hurt. It's just big, like standing at the edge of an ocean. The ocean wants to drown you, Vectis said, and you stand at its edge admiring the view. Your species is mad. Maybe, Sarah smiled slightly. But we're functional mad. They continued deeper into the abyss sector. The void presence grew stronger with each passing hour. Commander Park reported that he was hearing things, whispers at the edge of perception. Lieutenant Webb said he felt like he was being watched. But none of them broke. None of them lost their grip on reality. On the 18th day, they found it. The sensors detected a massive structure hanging in empty space, a construct so large it could have housed 1 billion beings. It was impossibly old, its surface covered in patterns and symbols that hurt to look at, but it was still active. Energy readings spiked as the Seeker of Truth approached. That's an architect facility, Prism of Dawn whispered from his medical bed, his light patterns barely stable even through heavy sedation. Impossible. Nothing should have survived 2 million years. As they drew closer, the structure came to life. Lights began to activate in sequence, running across its surface like a wave. A docking port irised open, clearly meant to receive them. Sarah made the decision without consulting Vectis, who was barely conscious. We're going in, she announced. Suit up. Volunteer crew only. Sarah, Park, and 2 other humans named Rodriguez and Chen Minor entered the structure through an airlock that seemed to adjust itself to human size. The interior was vast and empty, corridors stretching away into darkness. But as they advanced, lights activated, responding to their presence. They found the chamber at the heart of the facility. It was spherical, covered in screens and interfaces that defied human engineering. In the center floated something that looked like a contained star, pulsing with light and energy. When Sarah stepped close to it, the screens activated. Images flooded the chamber. The architects had not been one species but many, a coalition of races working together. They had mapped the galaxy, they had identified the void, and they had discovered something within it. The void wasn't empty, it was full of something vast and ancient, something that existed between dimensions, something that touched the minds of those who entered its space. The architects had called it the substrate, the foundation beneath reality itself. And the architects hadn't vanished. They had transcended. They had found a way to merge their consciousness with the substrate to become part of the void itself. The facility had been left behind as a gateway, a doorway for future species to follow the same path.
My God, Park breathed.
They uploaded themselves into the universe. The screens showed more. The substrate was waiting. It had been waiting for 2 million years for another species to arrive who could withstand contact, a species that could bridge the gap between physical reality and the infinite consciousness beyond. Sarah felt the weight of understanding crush down on her. They were waiting for us. For humans. The facility hummed with power, and Sarah realized it was activating something. A gateway. A door into the void itself, into the place where the architects had gone, where they were inviting humanity to follow. Back on the ship, alarms began to sound. Vectis had woken and discovered what was happening. His voice crackled over the comm. "Captain Chen, withdraw immediately. Do not activate anything. This is a direct order." Sarah stared at the pulsing gateway. She thought about the Dominion, trapped in their safe lanes for 200,000 years. She thought about the architects who had given up physical form for something else entirely. She thought about humanity, so young and so small in this vast cosmos. "What do we do?" Rodriguez asked. Sarah took a deep breath. "We go back to the ship. We report what we found, and we let smarter people than me figure out what it means." But as they turned to leave, the gateway pulsed once, and Sarah heard something. Not words, but meaning flowing directly into her mind. The architects were still there in the void, and they were calling for humanity to make a choice that would change everything. The argument aboard the Seeker of Truth had been going on for 6 hours. The ship hung in space near the architect facility, and the crew was divided on what to do next. Commander Vectis wanted to destroy the facility immediately. Shakris, recovered enough to speak, wanted to explore it further. Prism of Dawn was frantically trying to record everything before any decisions were made. Sarah sat in the conference room with her hands folded, listening to them debate in multiple languages that the ship's translator struggled to keep up with. Finally, she had enough. "Stop," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Before we decide anything, you all need to understand what we found in there. Really understand it." She brought up the recordings from their exploration, the images of the architects, the data about the substrate, the evidence of transcendence. As the Dominion crew watched, their reactions varied. Vectis became increasingly agitated. Shakris leaned forward with fierce interest. Prism of Dawn's light patterns accelerated into configurations Sarah had never seen before. "They're still alive," Park explained. "The architects didn't die. They left their bodies behind and merged with something else. Something in the void." "This is madness," Vectis said, his silver form rippling with distress. "You're describing death." "They found a way to die and called it transcendence." "Is it death if consciousness continues?" Prism of Dawn asked softly. "If awareness persists, expands even, can we call that death?" "Yes." Vectis slammed a tendril against the table. "Physical existence is the only existence that matters. Whatever those creatures became, they are no longer what they were. They are lost." Shakris clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Perhaps they found something better. The Dominion has existed in the same form for 200,000 years. We have not changed, have not grown. We are stagnant. Maybe the architects found the next step in evolution. Or maybe they found extinction and dressed it up in pretty philosophy," Vectis countered. He turned to Sarah. "You humans are practical. Surely you see the danger here. If word of this spreads through the Dominion, it will cause chaos. Species will attempt to enter the void. Millions will die chasing a fantasy of transcendence." Sarah met his gaze. "You're right about one thing. This information is dangerous. But it's also real. The gateway is active. The architects are still there in some form. We can't just ignore that." "We can destroy it," Vectis said. "This ship carries weapons capable of reducing that facility to atoms. We destroy it, we return home, and we report that the architects left nothing but ruins. The Dominion remains stable. Order is preserved. And we lie," Sarah said. "We bury the truth because it's inconvenient." "We survive," Vectis replied. "Which is more important than truth." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms began to sound. Webb's voice came through from the bridge. "Captain, we have a problem. The facility is doing something. It's broadcasting. A signal is going out in all directions at faster than light speeds." Everyone rushed to the bridge. The view screen showed the architect facility glowing with energy. Beams of light shooting out into space in a pattern that looked almost deliberate. Webb worked frantically at his console. "It's a message," he said. "The facility is transmitting data about itself, about what we found, to every corner of the galaxy. Every Dominion outpost, every listening station, everyone will know within days." Vectis made a sound like metal tearing. "The architects, they planned this. They waited for someone to arrive, and when they did, they ensured the knowledge would spread. There's no stopping it now." Prism of Dawn's light pulsed with something that might have been awe. "They want the galaxy to know. They want others to have the choice they made." "What choice?" Shakris demanded. "To leave physical existence? To become ghosts in the void? To evolve, Prism of Dawn said. To become something more than flesh and matter. The architects are offering the next step to anyone brave enough to take it. Sarah felt a chill run through her. We need to get back to the facility. Now. If that gateway is about to open or if others are going to come here, we need to understand what we're dealing with. They suited up again. But this time Prism of Dawn and Chakras insisted on coming despite the void exposure. The crystalline historian took heavy sedatives and rigged a portable shielding unit. Chakras simply refused to be left behind, enduring the mental pressure through sheer willpower. Back in the central chamber, the gateway was fully active now. It looked like a tear in space itself, showing depths that human eyes couldn't properly process. And through it, they could feel something. Presence, intelligence, vastness beyond comprehension. Sarah stepped closer, and the architect spoke directly into her mind. Not words, but concepts and feelings that her brain struggled to translate into language. They showed her what they had become. Individual consciousness merged into a collective, existing in the spaces between matter, experiencing reality from a perspective that transcended physical limitation. But they also showed her the price. To enter the substrate meant leaving everything physical behind. Bodies, possessions, the material world. It meant becoming something that could never return. Never touch solid matter again, never taste food or feel warmth or embrace another living being. It's a one-way door, Sarah said aloud. They can't come back. Once you go through, you're part of the substrate forever. The architects confirmed this. They had no regrets, but they acknowledged the permanence of their choice. They were offering others the same opportunity, but they were honest about the cost. Chakras stepped forward, staring at the gateway with her multiple eyes. Why? She demanded. Why did you leave? What did you gain that was worth giving up everything? The answer came as images. The architects experiencing reality from infinite perspectives simultaneously, understanding the structure of the universe itself. Existing in a state of pure thought and awareness, they had traded individual mortality for collective immortality, limitation for infinite expansion. It's beautiful, Prism of Dawn whispered, his light pattern shifting to match the energy of the gateway. They found a way past death, past the limits of physical form. They found a way to stop being alive, Chakras countered. This is not evolution. It's surrender. The facility shuddered and new images appeared on the screens. The galaxy was already reacting to the broadcast. Ships were being prepared. Volunteers from dozens of species were requesting to come to the Abyss sector. Some were scientists seeking knowledge. Others were the old and dying seeking immortality. And some were zealots who saw the gateway as a religious calling. Vectus appeared on their helmet displays, his voice tight with controlled panic. You need to return to the ship immediately. I'm receiving reports from Apex 7. The Council is in chaos. Some want to seal off this sector entirely. Others are demanding access to the facility. We may have started a civil war. Sarah looked at the gateway one more time. The architects were waiting. Patient and eternal. They had made their choice 2 million years ago. Now they were offering that choice to others. Not forcing it, not demanding it, just offering it. The question was what the galaxy would do with that offer. We're coming back, Sarah said. We have a lot of work to do. As they returned to the ship, Sarah realized the truth. Humanity hadn't just discovered the architects. They had become the guardians of the greatest choice any species would ever face. The choice between remaining physical and becoming infinite, between staying in the material world and merging with the void. And that choice was going to tear the Dominion apart. The Dominion Council chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. The debate had been raging for 3 weeks since the architect broadcast, and it showed no signs of stopping. Sarah stood at the center of it all, exhausted but determined. The humans had become the focal point of something much larger than first contact. Some species saw the gateway as the answer to stagnation. The Luminae, crystalline beings like Prism of Dawn, argued that physical existence had limits that consciousness did not. Several of their elder members had already volunteered to attempt transcendence. The Antheri, a race of energy beings, claimed they were already halfway to the substrate and viewed the gateway as their natural destiny. But others were terrified. The Vrax military caste saw it as a threat to physical civilization. The Korthian collective, a hive-minded species, feared what would happen if individuals could escape the collective through transcendence. And dozens of other races simply didn't trust something they couldn't understand. Then there were the regressors, a growing movement that wanted to destroy the gateway, seal off the Abyss sector, and execute anyone who had knowledge of the architects. They held rallies across Dominion space, calling the gateway a trap, a weapon left by ancient enemies, a cosmic poison that would end civilization. Their leader was a Vrax general named Corthan. He spoke to the council with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. This gateway is extinction wearing the mask of evolution. The architects are gone. Dead. Whatever remains in that void is not them but an echo, a recording. We must destroy it before more are seduced by its lies. Sarah stepped forward. General Corthan, with respect, you're wrong. I've been in contact with the substrate. The architects are still conscious, still aware. They're not dead, they're different. Different is a kind word for extinct, Corthan replied. They have no bodies, no physical presence. They cannot build, cannot create, cannot affect the material world in any meaningful way. What use is eternal consciousness if you cannot act? They can communicate, Prism of Dawn interjected. The crystalline being had become one of humanity's strongest allies. They can share knowledge, guide those who seek them, offer perspective from beyond physical limitations. That has value. Philosophical value, Corthan said dismissively. While we debate philosophy, volunteers are rushing to the Abyss sector. Ships full of the desperate and deluded seeking to throw themselves into the void. How many will die before they reach the gateway? How many will be destroyed by void exposure trying to become something they cannot? Sarah had to admit he had a point. Reports were coming in of ships attempting to reach the facility without proper shielding or human guides. Several had been lost, their crews driven mad by void exposure before they even came close. The death toll was rising. Councillor Vraxis, who had remained silent through much of the debate, finally spoke. The question before us is not whether the gateway is real or dangerous. It clearly is both. The question is what we do about it. Humanity, through no fault of their own, has become central to this crisis. Captain Chen, what do you propose? Sarah had been preparing for this moment. She took a deep breath and addressed the council. The gateway isn't going away. The architects made sure of that. And we can't stop people from seeking it out. Prohibition will only make it worse, drive seekers underground, create a black market in void transit. So instead of fighting it, we should manage it. Manage transcendence? Corthan laughed bitterly. How do you manage the end of physical existence? The same way you manage any dangerous frontier, Sarah replied. With guides, with rules, with safety protocols. Humanity can survive void exposure. We can navigate void space safely. Let us establish a presence at the architect facility. Let us screen volunteers. Ensure they understand what they're choosing. Guide those who are ready and turn back those who aren't. Chakras, who had joined the council as a military observer, clicked her mandibles in approval. The humans become guardians of the gateway, threshold keepers. I support this proposal. As do I, Prism of Dawn added. The alternative is chaos. At least this way we maintain some control, some structure. Vectus, who had been haunted since their expedition, spoke reluctantly. I still believe the gateway should be destroyed. But I acknowledge that may no longer be possible. If we cannot prevent access, then managing it is the least catastrophic option. The council voted. It took 2 days and required compromises from all sides, but eventually a majority agreed. Humanity would be granted sovereignty over the Abyss sector. They would establish the first permanent human presence beyond Earth's solar system, and they would become the guardians of the Architect Gateway. But not everyone accepted the decision. Corthan left the council chamber with a contingent of regressor supporters. Sarah saw the fury in his posture and knew this wasn't over. She was right. 2 months after the council vote, a regressor fleet entered the Abyss sector. 40 warships, heavily armed and shielded, with one goal: destroy the Architect facility and everyone defending it. The human presence at the facility was still small. The UNSS Pathfinder, 2 other Earth ships that had made the journey, and a handful of Dominion vessels crewed by volunteers who could tolerate void exposure. They were massively outgunned. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder as the regressor fleet approached. Webb plotted their trajectories while Park coordinated with their limited forces. They couldn't win a direct fight. They needed something else. Open a channel to General Corthan, Sarah ordered. The Vrax general's face appeared on screen, his mandibles tight with determination. Captain Chen, stand aside. We have no quarrel with humanity. Our target is the facility only. I can't do that, General. The facility is under our protection. Then you will die protecting a lie, Corthan replied. The gateway is poison. The architects are dead. Every being that enters that portal is lost forever. I will not allow more deaths in pursuit of a delusion. Sarah took a gamble. You're right, General. Everyone who goes through that gateway is lost to the physical world forever. It's a one-way door, but that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it a choice, and people deserve the right to make that choice. Even if it means choosing to die. Is it death? Sarah asked. The architects are still conscious, still aware. They experience reality just in a different way. Maybe that's not death. Maybe that's just change. Corthan was silent for a moment. You're young, Captain. Your species is young. You don't understand what we risk losing. The Dominion has existed for 200,000 years. We have built wonders, created art and science and culture across hundreds of worlds. If beings can simply abandon physical existence, what happens to all of that? Who will maintain the civilization we've built? Who will remember what we were? We will, Sarah said. The ones who choose to stay. The ones who find meaning in physical existence. General, not everyone wants to transcend. Most people, I think, will choose to remain as they are. But some won't, and that has to be okay. It's not okay, Corthan said. It's the end of everything we fought to preserve. No, Sarah replied. It's the beginning of choice. For the first time in 200,000 years, your species can choose something other than the path laid out for you. That's terrifying, I get it, but it's also freedom. The regressor fleet was in range now. Weapons were charging. Sarah braced for the attack. But Shakres appeared on the channel, her own ship positioned between the regressors and the facility. General Corthan, the Vrax warrior said, I stand with the humans. If you wish to destroy the gateway, you will have to go through me first, through your own kind. Is that what the regressors have become? Killers of our own people? Other ships appeared on sensors. Dominion vessels, some crewed by Lumini who supported transcendence rights, others by species Sarah didn't recognize. They had come to defend the gateway, to defend the right to choose. Corthan saw his advantage evaporating. His fleet was powerful, but not powerful enough to fight both humans and a significant portion of the Dominion defense forces. He could start a civil war right here, right now, or he could back down. The Vrax general made his choice. This isn't over, Captain Chen. We will not accept a galaxy where beings can simply abandon their responsibilities to chase ghosts in the void. The regressors will grow, and we will return. The fleet withdrew, but Sarah knew Corthan was right. This was just the beginning. The Dominion was fracturing along philosophical lines. Those who embraced the possibility of transcendence and those who rejected it. Those who saw the gateway as evolution, and those who saw it as extinction. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the observation deck of the new human station, orbiting the Architect facility. They had named it Threshold Station, and it had become home to the first permanent human colony beyond Earth. Thousands of humans had made the journey, along with thousands more from Dominion species who wanted to study the gateway, or simply experience living in void space. Prism of Dawn stood beside her, the crystalline being's light patterns calm and contemplative. 53 beings have entered the gateway since we established protocols, he said. Volunteers from 17 different species. All of them properly screened, all of them fully aware of what they were choosing. Any regrets? Sarah asked.